Transgender Justice Board and to draft a state policy for transgender persons in 2015. So, like over the course of the last few years, the Transgender Justice Board has successfully implemented several measures that help in the upliftment of transgender persons in society, including access to education, gender affirmation care, youth hostels, and also vocational training institutes. So, coming to transmisogyny and the assault upon gender identities, like we are all aware at how the internet and the expansion of digital media platforms has allowed different constituencies of minorities to find the voice and visibility that are often denied to them in physical offline spaces. Several transgender persons have used this platform provided by social media for self-representation, advocacy, and activism. But unfortunately, the same social media platforms have also fostered anti-trans movements in the state. An analysis of the number of crimes committed against gender minorities in Kerala reveals that a majority of these are directed at transgender women. Trans women face harassment from the authorities as well as from extremist factions of the society. So the term transmisogyny was developed by Julia Serrano. She introduced this concept in the book The Whipping Girl. So she uses it to describe the prejudice and discrimination faced by trans women, which is situated at the intersection of transphobia and misogyny. So she states that the discrimination faced by male to female transgender individuals for expressing their femininity, along with the prevalent depiction of trans women in popular media as men in dresses for the purpose of shock or humor, is a manifestation of misogyny. And if we look at like digital spaces also, we can very evidently see how like trans misogyny is propagated in digital spaces as well. So the paper incorporates sentiment analysis to understand the anti-trans narratives circulating in the social media landscape in Kerala. In the recent years, we have witnessed that opinionated postings on social media have aided in reshaping social perceptions and swaying public sentiments and opinions. The anonymity provided by social media has also allowed people to propagate their malevolent intention to manipulate public opinion and disrepute a particular group or a community. So, like coming to speak about like Instagram as a platform that is amplifying this hatred or animosity, we can see that like transgender women and their sexuality have been constantly scrutinized by anti-trans elements in the digital domain in Kerala. So like there are these organizations like the Youth Enrichment Society that goes by the acronym Yes Kerala, and the Youth Empowerment and Support Trust or Yes Trust. So they have carried out anti-trans and anti-gender movements in both online and offline spaces. So like even when none of these organizations are officially registered, they have managed to carry out campaigns opposing the transgender community and even sex education at some part of the states. So these organizations claim that the notions associated with the theories of gender are unscientific and are indeed perversions. They frequently refer to the trans community as rainbow mafia, who are propagating their agenda in society. Most of the content that they post online is associated with debunking theories of gender and sexuality, which are often based on announcements or findings by right-wing leaders across the globe and even manosphere content creators. They try to impose the idea that transgender persons are potentially disrupting the traditional notions of family by coercing cisgender individuals to adopt a transgender identity and undergoing gender reaffirmation therapies. So, like the Kerala government has also started an initiative to subsidize gender affirmation procedures. So, like when this was done, it was like constantly opposed by these anti-trans factions of the society. So, they carried out online campaign that claimed to highlight the disadvantages of these surgical interventions. They said
We
that
just have a minute, please conclude.
E- uh, these interventions were merely cosmetical, and they said that these were merely cosmetical and they do not have the potential to change a person's gender. So these posts, often widely circulated on Instagram, have the potential to push transgender persons into dilemmas regarding their identity, considering that a majority of transgender persons access information regarding gender and sexuality through online sources. Recently, there has been a rise in the number of derogatory short videos published on Instagram by young content creators to ridicule gender minorities. Essential elements associated with the construction of a transgender person's identity, including their gender expression, livelihood, and area of residence, are used to ridicule gender minorities. There have been several instances in the country where cyberbullying has forced gender and sexual minorities into severe psychological distress. To them, Transgender women are simply men dressing up as women for sexual gratification and pleasure. Many of these videos frequently reinforce the prevalent societal stereotype that all transgender women are engaged in sex work. Certain videos specifically target effeminate men, subtly suggesting that they migrate to major cities in Kerala to cross-dress as women and earn a livelihood through begging and through sex work. Kochi, which is one of the major financial and technological hub in Kerala, is often the place referred to by these content creators in their video. Kochi is relevant as the first place in the state to provide visibility to transgender persons in the public sphere when they were employed by the state as part of a community outreach program of the Kochi Metro in 2017. And in 2018, Maharaja's College in Kochi became the first higher education institution in the state to admit transgender students. So, the number of reels made upon the theme Kochil Jolikku Poya Changa, which can be translated as the friend who migrated to Kochi for employment, has been widely used to mock transgender persons who come to Kochi in pursuit of a new life. A lot of these videos feature cisgender men dressing as women and acting out in a hyper feminine manner, similar to the stereotypical depiction of trans women in popular media. So, to conclude, like the findings indicate that transgender women are constantly at threat from transphobic elements within the digital sphere. While the state and central government have attempted to implement initiatives for the betterment of the community, the sentiment is often not reflected within the general population. For a substantial segment of the population, especially youth, discussions about gender minorities on social media may be their only exposure to issues related to gender issues. Thus, the way transgender people are interpreted in digital domain can further increase the hurdles that they face in society, especially when mainstream media discourse on gender and sexuality is limited. Consequently, these fragments of misleading information regarding gender can profoundly affect public perceptions of transgender individuals, thereby exacerbating the stigma and discrimination connected with trans bodies. Yeah, thank you. I'll conclude because there is a very tight time limit.
Thank you so much, Tejas, for this insightful presentation. We will be taking Q&A at the end of the session. So I am inviting our next presenter, who is Sana Anwar, and her topic of presentation is Patterns of Technology Facilitated Abuse Among Urban Women Survivors of Domestic Violence. Sana, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You can come forward.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sana Anwar, and I am a research scholar in Jamia Millia Islamia in the Department of Social Work. I am here to talk on the topic patterns and technology facilitated abuse among urban women survivors of domestic violence. So, technology makes life easier by improving communication, education, healthcare. However, it also has downsides like cybercrime, privacy issues, and addiction. Technology is often misused in abusive relationships for control and harassment. Social media and fake accounts are used for stalking, impersonation, and spreading false information. Even WhatsApp status updates can be misused. Abusers track when victims are online, monitor their posts, or use them to send indirect threats or emotional manipulation. Cybercrime against women is rising, with NCRB 2023 reporting an 11% increase from 2021 to 2022. Additionally, NFHS 5 2019 to 21 found that 29.3% of women experienced physical violence, while 7.4% reported sexual violence. So this study explores the pattern of digital abuse. There is limited research on its psychological impact, cultural influences, digital interventions, and how survivors resist such abuse. To address this gap, a qualitative approach was used involving in-depth interviews in 5 urban middle-class women who have experienced domestic violence. Snowball sampling was employed to identify participants, allowing for a deeper understanding for their experiences. So as we come to the findings, my findings are categorized in several themes, where this study highlights how technology reinforces patriarchal control, extending abuse from physical to digital spaces. Abusers use surveillance, isolation, and financial control to restrict women's autonomy, creating fear and dependence. Drawing on feminist theories, The research reveals how digital abuse shifts power dynamics, making online spaces oppressive rather than empowering. Survivors' experiences show the deep psychological toll, stressing the need for strong protection. As we come to the first theme, the role of technology in enforcing patriarchal control and undermining women's autonomy. Technology reinforces patriarchal control, extending male dominance into digital spaces through surveillance, emotional abuse, and isolation. Feminist theory highlights how these tactics are used to suppress women's autonomy. As one of the participants shared, मुझे लगता था कि मैं उनकी नजर से बचकर कुछ भी नहीं कर सकती थी, expressing the fear of constant monitoring. This digital harassment creates ongoing anxiety. As participant 5 described, हर दिन ऐसा लगता था कि एक नए अटैक का इंतजार कर रही हूँ. Beyond surveillance, technology is also used to isolate women, as seen in participant 3's experience, who said वो मुझे isolate करना चाहते थे. Bell Hook argues that isolation weakens women's support systems, making them more vulnerable to control. These narratives reveal how digital spaces, instead of empowering women, often become sites of oppression, fear, and lost autonomy. The second theme is the shift from physical to digital abuse. It shows how patriarchal control adapts to technology, extending surveillance, isolation, and financial domination. Abusers now monitor and manipulate victims remotely, deepening their vulnerability. Participant 1, aged 40, who is a homemaker, shared, पहले तो मेरे कहीं आने जाने पर रोक था, फिर उसने टेक्नोलॉजी के थ्रू मेरी जिंदगी के हर हिस्से को कंट्रोल किया. Describing how her husband moved from restricting her movement to tracking her calls, location, and private conversations. Participant 3, aged 25, who is a project manager, experienced even harsher digital abuse and said, मुझे मार कर मेरा फोन छीन लेते थे, मेरे फोन और सोशल मीडिया अकाउंट्स हैक करके उन्होंने मुझे मेरी दुनिया से अलग कर दिया. Physical violence escalated into digital isolation, cutting her off from friends, work, and support. Feminist theory highlights isolation as a tool of patriarchal control, making it harder for women to seek help. The role of technology in escalating control and harassment, where technology, once a tool of empowerment, has become a means of control in abusing relationships, reinforcing patriarchal dominance through surveillance. Remote tracking and monitoring deepen women's entrapment, restricting their autonomy. Participant 1 said, उसने स्पाईवेयर इंस्टॉल किया था, ऐसा लगता था जैसे वो हमेशा मेरे साथ हो. Describing how spyware erased her privacy, making her feel constantly watched. Participant 3 said, मेरे हर मूव ट्रैक करना उसके लिए जरूरी था, highlighting obsessive control through digital monitoring. Such tactics disempower women, making them hesitant to resist or seek help. These accounts show how technology extends patriarchal control into intimate spaces, turning it into a weapon of fear and coercion rather than liberation. Another theme is the invasiveness of digital surveillance, where digital surveillance allows abusers to extend control beyond physical spaces, using tracking, monitoring, and financial manipulation to strip women of autonomy. Participant 2, aged 32, who is an insurance manager, shared, वो मुझे ट्रैक करता था, मेरी लोकेशन, messages, social media, सब कुछ. Describing the suffocating impact of constant monitoring, which forces women into self-censorship and erodes their privacy. Financial control further deepens dependence. Participant 5, a homemaker, stated, वो मेरा बैंक अकाउंट मॉनिटर करता था और पैसे ट्रांसफर कर देता था, highlighting how economic abuse limits women's ability to escape. Feminist theory stresses financial independence as key to liberation, yet digital tools are increasingly weaponized to reinforce control, making resistance even more difficult. Erosion of privacy and security in digital spaces. where technology, instead of empowering women, is increasingly used to invade their privacy and restrict autonomy. Digital spaces become tools of surveillance and control in abusive relationships. Participant 2 said, मुझे लगा मेरा फोन अब मेरा नहीं रहा. उसने पासवर्ड्स तक चेंज कर दिए. Describing how losing access to her own device erased her digital agency and sense of security. Beyond surveillance, digital abuse also enforces isolation. Participant 3 stated, वो मेरे सोशल मीडिया अकाउंट से फ्रेंड्स ब्लॉक कर देता था. मुझे मेल फ्रेंड्स से कांटेक्ट रखना भी अलाउड नहीं था. Showing how abusers manipulate online interaction to cut women off from support. These experiences reveal how digital abuse erodes privacy, autonomy, and security, reinforcing patriarchal control in both online and offline spaces. Another theme is the mental and emotional strain of being constantly watched. Digital surveillance in abusive relationship causes severe anxiety, fear, and emotional exhaustion, forcing women to regulate their own behavior. Participant 1 shared, हर वक्त लगता था कि मेरी हर बात सुनी जा रही है. मैं रिलैक्स नहीं हो सकती थी, describing how the fear of being monitored turned daily life into an oppressive experience. This fear lingers even after the abuse ends. Participant 2 stated, मैं रात को सो भी नहीं पाती थी क्योंकि लगता था कि कुछ गलत होने वाला है. Highlighting the long-term psychological toll. Similarly, participant number 5 shared, आज भी मैं अपने फोन पर हर ऐप 2 बार चेक करती हूँ, showing how digital abuse creates lasting paranoia. These narratives reveal how technology facilitated control embeds fear into women's lives, reinforcing patriarchal power through emotional and psychological coercion. As we come to the discussion of the study, we can say that technology in abusive relationships severe as tool of surveillance, restriction, and manipulation, extending patriarchal control into digital spaces. Constant monitoring creates anxiety and fear, forcing women into self-regulation, eroding their autonomy. Financial abuse further deepens dependence as abusers monitor bank accounts and restrict funds. From a feminist perspective, patriarchy adapts through digital abuse, reinforcing power structures. Emotional exhaustion from continuous stress affects mental health and decision making. Ultimately, digital abuse limits freedom, privacy, and autonomy, making technology a weapon of oppression rather than empowerment. So, some of the recommendations to combat digital abuse. It is crucial to engage men and women in conversation about consent and digital responsibility. Digital safety education should be prioritized through training on online privacy, spyware detection, and secure online practices. Additionally, sensitizing professionals, including police and social workers, will help improve responses to digital abuse cases. Awareness campaigns using media and community outreach can further educate the public on technology facilitated violence. Strengthening legal reforms to address cyber stalking and online harassment is essential, alongside developing technology solutions such as secure apps for privacy protection. Survivors must be supported through legal aid, counseling, and financial assistance to help rebuild their independence. Finally, collaborating with tech companies can push for stronger security measures to prevent digital exploitation and enhance users' safety. Thank you so much. This is all.
Thank you so much, Sana, for this wonderful presentation. Now, our next presenter is Mansi Duggal, and her topic is Digital Platforms and the Rise of Gendered Violence in South Asia, a Feminist Analysis. Mansi, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Please come forward.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mansi Dugal, a PhD research scholar at the Academy of International Studies, Jamia Millia, Islamia. The title of my paper is Digital Platforms and the Rise of Gendered Violence in South Asia, a Feminist Analysis. The rapid expansion of digital platforms in South Asia has provided new avenues for communication, economic participation, and feminist activism. However, these platforms have also become sites of pervasive gendered violence, including cyber stalking, deepfake pornography, and algorithmic discrimination. This paper examines how digital violence is embedded within the broader structures of patriarchy, neoliberal capitalism, and surveillance technologies, disproportionately affecting women and marginalized gender groups. Using a feminist theoretical framework, this study draws on cyberfeminism, which critiques the gendered nature of digital spaces, and intersectional feminism, which highlights how caste, class, religion, and sexuality intersect to shape digital vulnerabilities. Additionally, it employs a feminist political economy analysis to analyze how digital labor exploitation, data commodification, and corporate governance reinforce gender inequalities. I first begin by looking at the theoretical framework to understand the feminist perspectives on digital violence. I'll touch upon it briefly. Cyberfeminism, which emerged in the 1990s, critiques the gender dimension of digital technologies. Scholars such as Sadie Plant and Donna Haraway argue that while digital spaces have the potential to be liberatory, they're also shaped by patriarchal structures. In the South Asian context, cyberfeminist scholars highlight how internet remains a digitally gendered space where women face harassment, surveillance, and exclusion. Women's digital space is often policed through online moral policing, slut shaming, and doxing. The rise of deepfake pornography, revenge porn, and AI driven harassment disproportionately targets women, reinforcing traditional gender hierarchies. Platforms designed for open communication thus become the tools of control and violence. Intersectional feminism, developed by Kimberly Crenshaw, emphasizes that gender oppression is not a singular experience but is shaped by caste, class, religion, and sexuality. In South Asia, where social hierarchies are deeply entrenched, digital violence disproportionately affects marginalized communities. The feminist political economy framework also critiques the ways in which capitalism and digital technologies exploit gendered labor. Women's work in the digital economy, whether as influencers, gig workers, or content moderators, is often underpaid, precarious, and subject to algorithmic discrimination. Data commodification is another critical issue. Women's digital footprints, often without their consent, are used for profit making. Social media algorithms prioritize sensational content, making women more vulnerable to online hate and harassment. Meanwhile, corporate governance structures lack gender sensitive policies, allowing digital platforms to profit from misogynistic content without accountability. In the paper, I've looked at 3 case studies to understand gender digital violence in South Asia. The first is the boys' locker room controversy that happened in 2020 in India, which exposed the toxic digital culture of adolescent boys. A private Instagram chat group consisting of young boys from elite schools was found to be sharing morphed images of women, engaging in sexual objectification, and discussing rape threats. The case sparked widespread outrage, highlighting how digital spaces reproduce real world misogyny. The second was the deep fake pornography and targeting of women journalists in Pakistan. Pakistani journalist Asma Shirazi, known for her critical political reporting, was the victim of deep fake attack in 2021. Her morphed images and videos were circulated online in an attempt to discredit her and silence her digital journalistic voice. Deepfake technology enabled by AI makes it increasingly difficult to differentiate between real and manipulated content. The other case study is the 2021 Feminist March Backlash in Bangladesh, which was organized by activists advocating for gender equality, which faced severe digital backlash. Participants were subjected to mass online harassment, including doxing, threats, and misogynist trolling. Another case study is the cyber exploitation data leaks in Sri Lanka, which exposed that women's private data, including personal photographs and social media accounts, have been targeted in hacking incidents. And in some cases, hacked information is also used for blackmail and sexual exploitation. By analyzing these case studies, one understands that while digital spaces have become sites of gendered violence, they're also fostered by powerful feminist movements. Online campaigns such as the Me Too India, Girls and Dhaba, and Revenge Against Rape in Bangladesh have mobilized women against political oppression, digital storytelling, collective advocacy, and cyber activism have allowed marginalized women to challenge dominant power structures. I also now highlight some of the policy recommendations towards a feminist digital governance. Firstly, it's important to have gender sensitive cybersecurity policies, and the government should actively implement such policies as is the need of the hour. Also, social media platforms must take greater accountability for regulating misogynist content. Algorithms should be audited for gender bias, and content moderation should involve feminist experts. Digital literacy and cyber ethics should be taught in schools and universities. Survivor centered approaches should be undertaken for victims of online harassment, and there should be intersectional policy making for all. Digital platforms in South Asia present a paradox. They offer spaces for feminist resistance and mobilization, while simultaneously reinforcing patriarchal violence and technological exploitation. Our digital violence is deeply embedded. Digital feminist framework is extremely important to understand to ensure that online spaces are safe, equitable, and empowering for all genders. By integrating a feminist cyber laws, platform accountability, and intersectional policy making, South Asia can move towards a more and just inclusive digital future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mansi. Now,
Thank you, ma'am.
our next presenter is Dr. Biswadit Bhattacharya, and his topic is Solidarity in Digital Space, Evolving Community Communication Practices Among the Sex Workers of Kolkata. Biswadit, please come forward.
Yeah, hi. Am I audible, everyone?
Yes, yes,
Perfect.
yes, you are
Yeah.
audible.
Well, my name is Dr. Biswadit Bhattacharya. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Media Science at Maulana Abul Kalam Azad University of Technology. Um, this particular research article that I am going to present now is directly part of my doctoral research. Uh, First of all, I'll let you know that my doctoral research is actually on the community public sphere of the sex workers of Kolkata. And before I move ahead with the presentation, I would like to share a few facts about the community so that it's quite clear what exactly I'm talking about. First of all, we have to understand that red light areas, every single red light area is different, you know. So the red light area, if you talk about GB Road or if you talk about, you know, Sonagachi or Kalighat in Kolkata, every single red light area is different. So we need to understand that red light areas are more than just spaces of economic transaction. That is one thing. The second thing that I want to talk about is that these are spaces that's filled with vibrant communities marked by resilience, survival, and unspoken solidarities. If you look into the daily discourse that dominates, you know, our mainstream newspapers, you will realize that both in policy and public discourse, sex workers remain largely marginalized. People don't prefer talking a lot about them. So that's problematic. The second area of problem that I want to talk about is that if you look into sex work, it has been largely dealt, even in academia, I'm talking about, it has been largely dealt through the lens of binary. So either scholars are talking about health and information-based needs, which largely revolves to STIs, HIV, and other transmissible diseases, or they are talking about victimization, or they are talking about criminal instincts, or they are talking about the sympathetic behavior that the mainstream society should often give to the community. So this is just you know, a huge problem for the community of sex workers. If you look into the community, another important thing that I would like to talk about is in terms of the community public sphere, what happens is there is a Rocker Adda, which is a Bengali term, which roughly translates into spaces within community where we go and talk about a lot of things. It is not necessarily gossip, but it is far more and beyond that gossip. So it talks about violent clients. There are discussions on what one cooked in for their lunch, or what is happening in the neighbor's house. So that is what Rocket Adda is all about. So traditionally, this has been a space of solidarity, right? But if you look into the attitude of the mainstream society, you will realize that morality-driven narratives they have played a very important role in silencing the voices of the sex workers. So that's problematic. But with the advancement of digital media and its simultaneous proliferation within the community of sex workers, I believe there lies a ray of hope. Uh, I like to move on to the methodology because whenever someone is researching on the vulnerable community of sex workers, it is very important to talk about methodology, institutional review board, and ethics. First and foremost, I would like to talk about that. I completely adopted an ethnographic approach for this research article and my doctoral research. So both ethic and emic approaches to ethnography were present in my research. And secondly, I believe that this is an ethnography of narratives, not data. I don't use the term data. Rather, I do not prefer using the term data in ethnographic research because if you look into ethnography believes in a very humanist paradigm. So we have to look beyond traditional numbers. So data as a term is a total misfit. So I'll use the term narratives. So if I talk about my methodology is actually based on in-depth interviews, participant observation, and field notes. And the field work I got into the field work in Kalighat and Shonagachi. These were two popular red light areas. Shonagachi being more popular because there was a docu film that eventually came out in 2005, which won the Academy Award, Monument to Brettels. Kalighat is not that popular, but again, a very vibrant community because it has a lot of sex workers from also neighboring countries, from Bangladesh and Nepal. So that's interesting flux. How did I uh, opt to take the interviews? I relied on Shaver's technique of dealing with sex workers, how to talk with the community. And then I transcribed the in-depth interviews from Bengali to English and then proceeded with the thematic analysis of Brown and Clark, a six-step procedure thematic analysis of Brown and Clark. I'll move on to the three main findings of my research. First, there is an increased use of voice messaging for communication. If you look into our mainstream society, we don't use a lot of voice messages. So it is in its nascent stage of growth. I think a lot of corporates and conglomerates, they are trying very hard to make sure that, we eventually get to use a lot of this voice messaging services as part of our daily lives. But this has not taken that shape that they wanted it to be. But if you look into the community of sex workers, you'll understand that despite low literacy rates, they have adopted voice messaging on WhatsApp and Telegram as a primary means of communication. So that was very fascinating and interesting to me. So when I first visited the community, I found everyone on WhatsApp, whereas they cannot sign their name. So I asked, how is that possible? And then they showed me that, they are using voice messages. So no one types, no one texts. So everyone is using voice. So while voice messages, I believe, play a very important role in deliberating discussions on specific communicative needs, these also help them to bypass textual barriers. So that's very important thing because this also brings in a lot of immediacy, that also brings in a lot of intimacy in conversations. The second theme that I would like to discuss is on the transformation of traditional community communication space. As I was talking about, when I started my presentation, that we had this rocket art concept. It happens across all spaces, right? In majorly in South Asian countries. So within the community of sex workers, it is also in existence and it's very vibrant. But over the course of time, there has been a lot of changes, and we also need to understand that when I'm talking about sex work, it is a work that is not a time-regulated occupation, right? So a lot of people, they miss out on regular face-to-face conversations. So previously, these informal discussions, were held in all these specific spaces, and they played a crucial role in fostering relationships and exchanging vital information. But however, this digital space, that I'm talking about has now become a significant extension of these interactions. So WhatsApp, Telegram groups, they have, I'll not say replaced traditional meeting spots, but they have definitely expanded the traditional meetings spots. So they are no longer limited to the physical boundary. That is one aspect. So this allows sex workers to maintain continuity in their collective communication despite the unpredictable nature of their work schedule. And the third and the most important theme of my research is digital solidarity and mutual support. See, one of the most transformative aspects of digital communication is the reinforcement of solidarity. So we all know that, the community of sex workers, there is one thing in common, that is, of precarious contracts and labor. So that's very problematic. So the digital realm has become a space where members, provide emotional and material support. They are warning each other about violent clients. If someone requires some sort of help or financial assistance, so it is also available. So they are doing that all over WhatsApp and Telegram, and the NGOs right now are also present on WhatsApp and Telegram. So it has created, a seamless, interactive platform for the community where they can instantly mobilize support networks and strengthen their collective resilience and sense of community. So these are the three important findings. I'll just move on to the conclusion, keeping in mind that I don't have a lot of time. So I would like to talk about that because this is one expanding domain, and it's very crucial. It's very interesting. As part of suggestions, I would like to share three insights. One is we need to advocate for policies that recognize sex workers' digital rights and protect them from online censorship, because there is no such online censorship that we have, but at the same time, they are very vulnerable to a lot of traps and frauds available online. Second is we need to invest in digital literacy programs for the sex worker community so that the technological gap gets reduced. And third thing is we need to strengthen online and offline networks to resist both virtual and real world threats. So I believe that by recognizing the transformative potential that digital communication, shares with us, we can reimagine a future where sex workers, they are part of policy regulation, they are part of change, they're also active agents in time to come. Thank you so much. Please let me know your questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Viswanath, for your insightful presentation on the practices among the sex workers of Kolkata. It was truly enlightening to get to know about their situation. Wonderful work. Now I will invite Preeti for taking up the Q&A session. Preeti?
Thank you all the
Oh.
presenters. First of all, amazing presentation and very insightful. And thank you, Tanvi, for inviting me for the questions. Our first question is for Tejas by Afreen, who asks, what strategies, legal, social, or technological, can be implemented to counter the spread of misinformation targeting transgender women in Kerala's digital sphere? And how effective have existing interventions been?
Yeah. So shall I answer?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So like a lot of surveys like conducted by like American LGBTQ organization has GLAD, and like other surveys have like established the fact that like all prominent social media sites have failed to establish a safe atmosphere for marginalized communities and gender minorities. So like speaking about this particular instance as in with Yes Kerala. So like Yes Kerala emerged as an online movement against the Kerala Cure Pride that was supposed to happen in 2023 in the Malappuram district. So like activists associated with the movement were like bombarded with threat calls and messages in their online platforms. So as a response to this, a case was filed with the Kerala High Court, and the High Court later like in the judgment asked the police and the local authorities to ensure that like these Instagram accounts are like cancelled, and also to ensure whether these are like officially registered organizations. So like when certain accounts are reported on Instagram and they're subsequently taken down, like they can always create new account. Like they can use different emails, they can use like the same name in a different format, as in they can change the username with a few dots or some other like a particular symbol. Second, they can always create new accounts. So like as a nation and the IT Act that we have, the existing IT Act has like consequently failed to like, I mean, ensure that we are, I mean, establishing a safe environment for gender minorities. So like, I mean, this is a question that is open to debate, and the kind of experiences that gender minorities face online is also dynamic. There are a lot of people who have responded that they have never experienced any negative comments online, and at the same time, like the majority experience are always associated with like cyber crimes and hate comments. So yeah, like that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Tejas. Our next question is by Yusra and this is for Sana. She asks, in the context of technology, facilitated abuse against urban women survivors of domestic violence, what specific patterns have emerged in terms of the most commonly used digital platforms and tactics by perpetrators? Additionally, how do these patterns vary based on socio-economic factors, legal awareness, and access to digital literacy among survivors? What role can law enforcement and policy makers play in addressing these challenges effectively? So it's a three-part question. Sana, if you can.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. So first, let me first talk about the platforms, common digital platform and tactics used by the perpetrators. Basically, WhatsApp, banking apps like Paytm are very common. As we talk about the WhatsApp, where location, status sharing, videos and images sharing is very common. Other than this, banking apps like a Paytm, where the perpetrator is able to control the financial transaction of the survivor. इसके अलावा कुछ स्पाईवेयर्स भी फोन में इंस्टॉल करते हैं, जिसकी वजह से ये सर्वेलेंस रख पाते हैं परपेट्रेटर्स के लोग अब्यूजर्स के ऊपर. Coming to the second question, the socio-economic factors. In middle class women often experience financial abuse through digital banking restrictions.
Preeti, sorry for interruption. I just want to ask Fomba, Tara, Joris, and Vani Singh. Are you still there in the meeting? Vani Singh and Tara Joris. Both of you are there in the meeting or not? Kindly respond. I guess they are not in the meeting. So you can continue your Q&A session, Preeti.
So, as we talk about the legal awareness, women with legal knowledge are more likely to report abuse or seek help. Whereas if they don't have any knowledge, they are afraid to even talk about it. Similarly, digital literacy enable women to recognize and counteract abuse, like changing password or blocking, etc. The coming to the third question, where the role of law, like specialized crime units, faster response mechanism, and gender sensitive training can enhance victim support. And policy makers like strengthening cyber laws, promoting digital literacy are crucial for effective awareness. That will be all. I hope I have answered all the questions.
Thank you, Sana. Next question is for Biswajit by Shubhangi. The question is, how do online censorship, platform policies, and digital surveillance impact the ability of sex workers in Kolkata to organize, communicate, and seek support within digital spaces?
Yeah. Hey, Shivangi, I think, right? Thank you so much for this question. So I would like to tell you, if you look into the a digital space, first of all, we are talking about a community that is very illiterate, right? So they even memorize their signatures. So that is one thing that we need to keep in mind. So I'm talking about digital literacy for a community that has no idea about alphabets and letters, all of it. So if you look into the precarious environment of digital media, we can understand that there is rise of so much fraudulent activities where people are, blackmailing, they're asking for ransom, they're asking for a lot of money. And we need to understand that, for the community of sex workers, being anonymous is very, very important. It is their most cherished thing. So if you say that, I'll make sure that I'll give you anonymity, in return you give me something in return, they are willing to do that. So that is one thing that we need to understand. So in the world of, you know nudes and chemsex. So there needs to be a lot of policy interventions that helps this community to survive in the world of digital media, because they are late adapters. They have accepted this technology, I think, in the past 2 3 years only, during COVID-19 pandemic, and we have been using our mobile phones and digital media for such a long time. So they are late adapters, and we need to have policies to make sure that they find this a safe avenue to discuss whatever they are discussing. So that is one thing that we need to think about. And of course, digital surveillance, we all know about. There are platforms. Say, for example, I'm talking about, say, Chatterbait or something, some other platform, but they are not aware of this platform. So if you are looking forward to digital sex, then again, it's Telegram and WhatsApp only, where everything can be recorded and it can be sold in other platforms. So that's really, really problematic. And the anonymity is no longer there, so that will be problematic. So I am rather suggesting a space where they are part of this policy formulation, they're part of this policy making, and what they do is they sit together, people from various states, they sit together, they answer it, and they make it a completely holistic policy in how they navigate the digital terrains. I hope I have answered your question. If you have anything,
Uh,
do send me an email.
Hmm, I think no. So yeah, thank you for that. But I have a question in lieu
Yeah.
of the present question that was asked by Shubhangi, and I think
Hmm.
it encompasses what you and Tejas, both of you, spoke, because since Tejas pointed out how digital spaces are creating an unsafe and a violent space for trans community, and you spoke on how it is creating a community, a solidarity for sex workers. I mean, how do you see Tejas's paper as, a counter position to what you present? Because it definitely, you talked about illiteracy, so that definitely exists in the sex worker community. But at the very same time, I want to point out to Tejas that online platforms do provide with a very thriving and a buoyant community, a support community for the trans and the LGBTQIA community as well. It's not just, there's definitely what you presented, it's there. We all have faced it in some way or the other. But then there is the other part as well. So how do you navigate this section in your presentation or in your paper? And for Biswajit, I think it's exactly the opposite. That since literacy is a challenge here, and we know in technology how much literacy is of importance. So how do you navigate through that? If both of you
Shall I
can.
answer? Shall I take your question first, Preeti?
Yeah, I
You
think you
mind
can
me
go
answering?
first, and
Yeah.
then we can have
So,
the
so
yes.
yeah, please don't mind, Tejas. I'll just answer and I'll get back to you.
Yeah,
So
it's
what I'm
okay.
what I'm saying is, if you look, see, digital media is open to a lot of interpretations. For the LGBTQ plus community, if you look into communication as a standard, then you will get to see that communication is far more uh, plural in other platforms than Grinder. Okay, so if you talk about digital spaces, if you talk about uh, the inception of digital spaces in Telegram, but again, that is problematic because there is no notion of safety. Like, even if you look into the physical world, you talk about STIs and HIV and all that stuff. People will say, why you are giving me fokat ka gyan? So that is one thing. Okay, but if you look for the community of sex workers, they have adapted this at such a late stage that we cannot scare them away. We cannot afford to do that, because if you look into the central government, they are trying to dispatch rations now, through online identification and all that stuff. So there are a lot of schemes that will, need digital media. So we cannot let these people, leave this platform, because if they leave this platform, then it will be very, very problematic. But the precarity, it is always there, it is in existence. So I think we need to work both with, solidarity, and at the same time, keeping in mind the threats, the constant threats. So there needs to be intervention in terms of policy. Without policy, we cannot do that. It is impossible, because these platforms, they are providing unique spaces, but not for everyone. Not everyone knows the merit and the demerit of using a social media platform, or what is a Tor browser, or how do you know if someone has hacked your camera and is listening to your conversations, or what will you do if someone is saying that will kind of viral your nudes or something else. So what will you do? We don't see, as learned people, even if it happens with us, we are also confused at the first chance, right? We then Google, consumer helpline or cyber security nearest police station. That is what is coming to our mind. Now, what about this community? Like, if you look into the police brutality, it always signifies corruption to them. So they don't go to police for anything. So that's problematic. So we need to understand that for various communities, the interpretation is completely different. That's what my take is.
Yeah, so like Vishwadeep said, like the experiences are like very plural. So like what I presented today is essentially like one element that we have seen throughout the years on like how social media works and how like different constituencies have used social media, for instance. I like to answer your question, like my PhD thesis is on how like transgender persons in Kerala have used social media for like advocacy, activism, and like the relevance is that like if we speak about like gender minorities, the major thing that will come to your mind is the Hijra communities of Southeast Asia, or South Asia in general. So Hijra communities have always like existed in like major cities. Like if you speak about like South India, for instance, they have like existed in cities specifically like Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, and like Kerala has never had a community as such, because the cultural experiences and also like how sexuality and gender has worked in the state has been different. So before 2014, transgender persons were like literally invisible in the state. So if they were like found dressed up as in a gender different from their official documents, they could be or prosecuted for impersonation. So like after 2014, a lot of people actually came back to Kerala, and like social media has played a significant role in reaffirming their identities. So like there are a lot of influencers. So like in a general Indian context, there is Dr. Trin, like who has documented her journey of like gender reaffirmation through YouTube and other platforms. So the kind of impact that it has on like people struggling with their gender identity is substantial. But at the same time, the topics like transmisogyny, like cyber attacks is also like another side of a coin. Yeah, but I mean, like looking at a broader picture, I would always say that like social media has aided in helping gender minorities to establish their like visibility, and also like activism. Like social media has helped gender minorities in a multitude of ways. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the question and answering it so wonderfully.
Ma'am, now I would like to invite Humaira to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much. On behalf of SNCWS, I extend our sincerest gratitude to everyone present here today. Your presence has made this conference truly special. We are also grateful to our director, Ma'am Professor Zaidi, and our respected professors, research scholars, and students for their generous support. We hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
So yeah, okay, thank you, Myra. So we are taking a short break. The video and meeting are both ongoing. So we will get back at 1:30 for technical session 3. Please stay connected.